guys, Scott Rogan here from Rogue Home Cinema, and
Andrew Poole from Rogue Home Cinemas.
yeah, so we're fully teamed up and we're going all in with sharing what we do week by week and some of the awesome projects that we're lucky to experience as part of our living.
Absolutely. So, had a great night last night. Spent the evening at Ellington's Jazz Club in Perth. Great little venue, by the way, and I was really privileged to be there and witness Lawrence Hobgood, who's an amazing jazz pianist. He had the Lawrence Hobgood trio there. Last night we had a couple of guys from Perth, Chris and Sam, who were on the drums and on the bass. And I was lucky enough to be sitting about a metre from Lawrence's keyboard. And
Well, piano or key?
piano,
yeah.
a Steinway, beautiful.
Wow.
And had a fantastic evening. But I must admit, of course, always on the job.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came into my mind was talking about understanding sound and especially learning how to.
For us, but you're at the HPA THX acoustics training and design course only a couple of weeks ago over in Melbourne,
Yep.
Where you particularly focus on critical listening and the setup and the measurement of home cinema surround sound rooms, obviously for the whole purpose of creating amazing experiences. And the most important tool out of all the tools and all the measurements that you have as a calibrator is yourself, right? Like,
Absolutely. You need to be able to use your ears. And whilst we don't necessarily believe in the golden ear thing, we do believe in learning to listen. And Jerry LeMay of the HA and THX has done a very good job of making this actually simple to do.
yeah.
So he talks about 5 measurements or metrics, and those are clarity, focus, envelopment, response, and dynamics. And what
Cool.
that means is that we've now got a language. If I talk to you about the clarity and we define that, then we can listen to a track and we're listening for the same things, as opposed to saying that's very silky and it's very chocolatey.
Yeah, so it's defining some meaning behind things. So you can't adjust or measure something unless it's really got a name. So it adds a quantifiable component to the entire process. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the great thing about last night was this: I was sitting very close to this beautiful Steinway piano and listening to him play. And the really interesting thing was I was listening for clarity and I was listening for focus. And what I found when I was listening really carefully was that a lot of the mids and lower frequencies were emanating sort of from around where he was at the front of the piano and from underneath the piano and those sorts of areas and seemed to be more localized around him. The higher frequencies were coming off the shorter strings, bouncing off the roof of the piano.
So the piano was open.
So it was open.
Yeah, cool.
And what was happening was, as he played and he moved into the higher register, the sound would position itself more towards the reflected sound coming
cool.
off the roof.
So you're sort of, I guess, where you're seated, you're more in a near field position
Absolutely,
to the
yeah.
source, which
Yep.
in this case the piano.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Awesome.
No, so that was great. And
So the clarity, no doubt, would have been superb. I mean, this is a Steinway piano.
it's the
from-
real thing. You
Yeah.
can't, I don't know how you get any better clarity. It's the real
It's the
thing.
real thing.
you know.
So this, of course, is our ultimate reference point. So really, you're recalibrating yourself for checking out what's actually produced. And look, you've got the CD here, so
Yeah.
you've got to. You've heard the live thing. Sure, the CD was produced through the studio and all that stuff. Though, obviously, you've got a closer reference point than a band, an artist, or someone like that you haven't heard live before. So it's pretty cool.
So being I guess the geek that I am, I wanted some other kind of reference for when I listen to this. And I thought, well, what can I do? I can't sit back next to the piano at home. So I pulled out my phone and I took a very quick SPL reading, and which happened to throw up an FFT, a frequency response curve. And I found that we were listening at about an average of 95 decibels, C weighted. And so what I wanted to do was then come back to our demo cinema and listen at that level to see how the dynamics were impacting me. So I could feel the sound. It wasn't actually thumping me in the chest, but it was sort of, I could feel it on my pants and I could feel it in the air. And I wanted to make sure that what we are reproducing here had some of that dynamics there. And as you said, though, we are at the mercy of the studio.
Yeah.
So obviously this is not going to be exact, but I wanted some kind of
Yeah,
connection.
sure. Yeah, cool. So actually, we'll show that now. So we've got the response and the level recording that Andrew took just last night. So I'm going to just dodgy it up here and pop it in front. Is that going to focus? Maybe. I'll go further back. Give it a tap. Beautiful. So you can see that we've actually got a really cool response from one seat in a sort of a near field position for the piano. You're kind of out the way of the. Now we're going to put this link up so you guys can reference to this on the produced video pretty soon. So I'll put a link up for that. So you were sort of inside of the speaker area. So the mic'd up and loudspeaker audio was sort of going overhead.
Absolutely, yeah. The only thing I had between him and me, literally, was the edge of a foldback speaker. So there would have been some, but that was pointed directly at him, and the rest of it was over my head and going back, to the audience. So I was absolutely live near field.
Wow,
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
So now I think you mentioned as well of the bassist, you used to close your eyes and listen for how the other instruments were coming through as well.
As you know, we use some reference tracks, and one of the tracks we listened to, we locate a bass in the room. And the interesting thing last night was the bass was, because it is generally living in some of the lower frequencies, as he played some of the lower notes, it was harder and harder to locate, so a bit like a subwoofer, psychoacoustically, I knew where he was, so I was tempted just to place it there. But if I tried to sort of erase that, it was harder to locate that. But the drums and the keyboard, the mid to high frequencies, very, very specific.
And that sort of lays out what we call the focus component with critical listening, is where closing your eyes, you can go, the piano's there, the drums are there, and the basses, at least in the highest notes, are over there, and in the lower notes, it's all enveloping.
So clarity, well,
amazing.
Just doesn't get any better, does it? Focus, yes, I could localize the sounds, the sound stage, for want of a better description. I mean, a real stage in this case.
And even the different frequencies of the piano change focus.
Changing,
cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. Then the envelopment, I was sitting right in the sound in this case. So I was surrounded by it. And then the envelopment brought in the bass and of course the drums and of course the people behind
the
drinking and the ambience so I was really slap bang in the middle of it, and that's what we like to produce in our work as well. We need, if we had a live recording of that position I was in, I'd want to feel the same when we're sitting in our room. So that was envelopment. The response,
so back to the image we just saw. So response is the actual balance of all the frequencies that we hear. So the image we just popped up a moment ago actually showed a nice chunk of bass, nice big fullness of bass, which is quite a bit more level than the mids and the highs. So you've got that,
and all the way down to 20 hertz. So again, it's just real reinforcement that there's stuff going on down there. And if you've got a sub that's rolling off at 40 hertz or something, you're not getting the big picture.
Yeah, and look, and that was live music, so it wasn't a test tone that we should see a big full range of sound, because every frequency is pushed through the signal, the test signal. Instead, this is live music, and yet it actually had this really nice solid range of audio over a 30-second period, I think.
I averaged over a 30-second period. The interesting thing was I was only doing it really for the SPL, for the sound pressure level, and I happened through the app just to get that response. And there's a few things that aren't technically correct in there, but we won't worry about that right now. This is just an overview. But the frequency response was full, and actually a nice slight roll off towards the high end. It's sort of pretty much what we like to see at the end of a calibrated room.
So great seating position that you chose. The real deal, and also just this week you took some measurements. I'm looking at it here. I'll give you guys a look of a 2-channel home sound system. some beautiful high-end speakers.
Very nice. He's got Krell preamps in there. He's got some nice Utopia speakers.
The Focal from France.
The Focals, yep. And all extremely capable gear. But
so it's like this gear's like having a Steinway piano in your house. Yep. But the results we see here is someone like me trying to play it.
Well, yeah, there was an arch enemy here, you know, and it wasn't the gear, it was the room.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll just have a quick look at that now, and I'll tap this so we can focus the picture. Oh, that was pretty good. Huh? Yeah. So we've actually got these little pink lines on this, which demonstrates the equipment picking up on the room modes. Which is the boundaries of the room, causing the sound, the bass sound, to bounce around, and this is pretty brutal. I mean, this is your Tour de France sort of looking response. Now, this was a test signal.
So this is pink noise, which is equal energy per octave. So you know, if the room and everything was perfect, we would have seen, in theory, at least a perfectly flat response. Right. As you said, you know, we've got up to, I think, about 500 hertz there. We're looking at, you know, as you call it, the Tour de France. And even up to 1100 hertz, it's still a bit, we're seeing some speaker boundary interference response. And then after that, it actually starts to, you know, smooth out, which is what we'd expect.
So that's, I mean, so that's the transition point. And this is a really big difference between a live hall, an open space concert, you know, large rooms, commercial cinema rooms in their sort of dimensions.
Yep.
Whereas in a home listening, what size room was this approximately?
About 4.5 meters wide and 6 meters long.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So acoustically a small space, which means the boundaries that the system's sitting in is going to influence the bass waves that are very long, and they take, you know, anywhere from 5 to 15 meters depending on the frequency to actually form. So they're hitting the wall, they're bouncing back, we're getting cancellations, we're getting peaks, and really, I mean, these were tower speakers, I guess, so you're paying a lot of money for particularly the bottom end. Like, I mean, most guys out there will know you get like a nice pair of bookshelves, they might cost you, say, $2,000 for a pair. And then if you want the tower version of that, they might cost you double. So you're paying a lot of money for extra box sizes, extra bass drivers, all for the goal of more and bigger bass.
So the challenge here becomes, once you physically lock your low frequency to your mids and your highs, you lose the ability to manage that bass to a degree anyway. So your speaker positioning becomes critical. And then, you know, once you've done everything you possibly can with your speaker positioning and then managed any of the comb filtering and speaker boundary interference response,
sort of it kind of cups it like this and makes it sound very different.
And then our only option then is to do what, you know, is a sensible thing to do here to get great, you know, to really support those fantastic speakers is extra subwoofers and bass management. And then that room's going to start to really come together.
So that's after working out, of course, the seating and speaker position.
Yes.
If or when the room or the family allows the moves to do that.
Which is going to be a challenge in this room. There's not a lot of room to move, literally. But there are three major steps here. What we call mechanical calibration, that's moving seats, moving speakers, making physical adjustments. The next one is acoustic calibration, where, again, some speaker movement, but then treatment of the surfaces.
Materials to the room.
Or sometimes removing them. Some people just kill a room. And then the final touch is, on top of that, is any EQ if absolutely required. But that's the last resort.
Right.
We do everything physically and we do everything acoustically first.
And you mentioned a solution with bass, which is multiple subs. And I mean, even I'm sure at the Jazz Club, they would have had a satellite speaker probably up high and the bass speakers somewhere else in the room.
I was looking, I couldn't see them, but yes, something would have been going on.
Often that's the case. So this satellite system is actually very practical concept. I mean, live gigs, they've got their array up high and they've got their subs down low.
Yep.
They've got the right box and the right EQ and the right position. Placement, not such a big deal, must admit.
Well,
for a
they don't
live
have
rock
the challenge
concert.
in a large auditorium yet.
So with a home, like in our demo space here, we've got a subwoofer positioned sort of the third into the room on the left, and we got another one kind of up in the back right corner and forward somewhat. Quite unusual placement. People go, oh, why are they there? I kind of like the look of the round thing, so it sort of sits proud as you walk in the room.
Well, we've got another.
This was the acoustically the
Solution,
best place to place the loudspeakers.
We're actually going to do it, and we'll have some nice graphics to demonstrate exactly how that works, and put it in very simple terms so that you guys can tackle that as well.
Sure. So no, that's really cool. So yeah, had yourself a little bit of a self calibration last night.
Adjusted the ears.
Yeah.
And you know, this is something anyone can do. Don't be fooled into thinking that, you know, there's something special about this. It's just learning to listen and working with those core descriptions so that you can then communicate to other people.
So 5 key critical elements we chatted about just before. I think Harman also have a how to listen document as well.
They do.
Harman International, you know, JBL and Harman Kardon obviously, and they own probably. In fact, they're actually brought by Samsung last year, which is crazy. So massive audio company, and one of the real critical players from Harman International was Floyd Toole.
Yep.
Who
One of our heroes. Yeah.
Really one of our heroes that wrote really the guide to small room acoustics and understanding sound. So they're really great resources for you guys out there that really want to deep dive into it, do some study. Then, you know, it's all based on science. But certainly check in with us. We'll give you the sort of, I guess, the shortcuts and the places to go to really quickly give you a great result and a lot of satisfaction.
And if you have a chance to catch Lawrence Hobgood playing the piano, if you're into jazz piano, highly recommend it. Had a fantastic night.
Great. All right, guys. That's it for the check-in. We'll see you again soon.
Cool.